If you've been playing around with Stable Diffusion, the AI image generation model, you might have heard of ComfyUI. Its powerful interface that's actually more confusing UI than Comfy. Don't let that scare you off though. ComfyUI is actually one of the best ways to run Stable Diffusion, offering flexibility, control, and speed. Its node-based interface is optimized for efficiency, making image generation quicker than other UIs, like Automatic 1111. But what if you don't have the GPU power, or prefer not to clutter your system with multiple installations? That's where lightning.ai comes in, a platform that lets you access up to 22 free GPU hours per month. In this tutorial, I'll show you how to install and run ComfyUI efficiently on lightning.ai, so you can use it without tying up local resources and still get the flexibility and speed you need. As always, you'll find a detailed guide linked in the description below, where you can find all the links, commands, and step-by-step instructions for installing and running ComfyUI on lightning.ai. If you want to speed things up, I've got a ComfyUI template on lightning.ai that'll have you generating images in no time. It's ready to go with ComfyUI and the SDXL model. Just duplicate it using the link in the description. If you'd rather set up ComfyUI yourself from scratch, stick around and follow my step-by-step tutorial. The first step is to gain access to lightning.ai. Lightning.ai is a platform designed for efficient AI development, letting you build, train, and deploy machine learning models quickly. It's also a great way to experiment with different tools and installations without worrying about cluttering your local machine. If something doesn't work out, just delete the project and start fresh. No risk or hassle. To get started with lightning.ai, head over to their website and click on Start Free. If you're signing up with a personal email address like Gmail, be prepared for a possible waiting list. It might take a few days to receive approval. On the other hand, using a professional email domain from your company or educational institution often grants instant access. Once you have been granted access, complete the sign-up process and you're good to go. No credit card info required. After logging in, you'll be taken to your dashboard, the central hub where you can manage all studios. A studio is a persistent cloud environment that functions like a laptop but on the web. Essentially, you would create one studio per project. So for ComfyUI, we would create a separate studio. If you want to learn more, I've got a tutorial on lightning.ai that covers everything you need to get started. To create a new studio, click on New Studio and select the code environment. Take a look at your newly created studio. You'll see a main.py file with some basic code to get started. Go ahead and delete it by right-clicking and selecting Delete Permanently. We won't need it, and having it there might cause confusion later on. Next up, let's get ComfyUI installed. To do that, open a new terminal window within your studio by clicking on the Terminal tab. ComfyUI is hosted on GitHub, and to install it, we'll need to clone its repository into our studio. In the terminal window, type git clone, followed by the URL of the ComfyUI repository. Then press Enter. A few seconds later, the ComfyUI repository should be cloned into your studio, and you'll see a new directory called ComfyUI pop up in Explorer here on the left. Next up, let's install the dependencies listed in the requirements.txt file. To do this, simply type the command pip install-r ComfyUI/requirements.txt into the terminal and press Enter. After a few seconds, all the required packages should be installed. By the way, I prefer to close the terminal and open a new one after each step to keep the output clean and maintain a better overview. However, this is just my personal preference and you don't need to do the same. For those of you who have installed ComfyUI before on your local machine, you might be wondering why I'm not installing PyTorch here. Don't worry, Lightning AI Studios come pre-equipped with PyTorch, so there's no need to install it separately. You can verify the installed version by running pip showtorch in the terminal. Next, let's install ComfyUI Manager. This is entirely optional, but I highly recommend it. ComfyUI Manager makes life with ComfyUI so much easier by handling installations, custom nodes, and AI models for you. Think of it as a one-stop shop for keeping everything updated and running smoothly. To get ComfyUI Manager, you'll also need to clone its repository. So, in your terminal, type git clone followed by the URL of the GitHub repository where ComfyUI Manager resides. This time, though, you'll want to add a path to tell Git exactly where to put the cloned repo. That's ComfyUI/custom nodes. This will ensure that ComfyUI Manager gets installed in the right spot. To confirm that ComfyUI Manager has been installed, open the Custom Nodes folder in your File Explorer and take a look inside. You should see the newly cloned repository sitting comfortably within. If you don't see the Custom Nodes folder, it might be due to a setting in Lightning AI. To fix this, go to Visual Studio Code's Settings, which can be found at the bottom left corner of your screen. Search for Git Ignore and ensure that the Explorer Exclude Git Ignore setting has been unchecked. This should reveal all hidden folders, including custom nodes. Next up, let's install the dependencies for the ComfyUI Manager, listed in the requirements file using pip install. To do this correctly, ensure you're referencing the requirements file for the ComfyUI Manager, which can be found under Custom Nodes, ComfyUI Manager. After a few seconds, all the necessary packages should be installed. Now it's time to run ComfyUI. To do that, we need to switch to GPU mode. To switch to GPU mode, click on the Studio Environment button at the top right corner. You're currently running on CPU, which doesn't use any tokens. Now, select Switch to GPU from the menu. This will bring up a list of available GPU servers, showing their specs, cost, and estimated waiting time until they're ready for use. With Lightning AI's free tier, you get 15 tokens per month. Each token is worth $1, which can give you up to 22 hours of free GPU time. Let's start with the cheapest option. T4. It might take a few seconds or sometimes over a minute for Lightning AI to prepare this instance, depending on system load and other factors. When your GPU is ready, you'll get a confirmation pop-up asking you to switch. Once you've confirmed the switch, your studio will be running on GPU mode. To make sure it remembers this setting, check the Remember Last Used Machine box, so next time you launch your studio, it will automatically go into GPU mode, saving you time and hassle in the long run. Now that we've switched to GPU mode, it's time to run ComfyUI. To do this, we'll use Python to execute the script. In your terminal, type the command python ComfyUI/main.py to run ComfyUI. This will execute the Python script located in the ComfyUI folder. If everything has been installed correctly, you should soon see two messages appear in your terminal. Starting server, and then to see the GUI, go to this URL. This means that ComfyUI is now up and running on a local web environment. Although ComfyUI is running now, we can't just copy and paste its URL into our browser because it's hosted in a separate cloud environment. To connect to it from your local machine, we'll use a plugin called Port Viewer. This will create a temporary tunnel that lets us view the app's interface or output through our web browser. Just tap the plus button in the top right corner to get to the plugin installer. From there, head to Web Apps, find Port Viewer and let it download. Next, create a new port by clicking New Port in the Port Viewer plugin. Label it something like Stable Diffusion on ComfyUI. Then set the port number to 8188. Once you've created this port, you'll be able to access the ComfyUI app and will be almost ready to start generating images. However, there are a few more things we need to take care of first. Let's close ComfyUI by clicking on the VS Code icon in the right-hand pane of your studio. Next, let's make things even easier for ourselves. Under Lightning Studio, you'll find a file called onstart.sh. This script runs every time you start up your studio. We want to add the command that starts ComfyUI to this script, so next time we open the studio, it'll run automatically without needing a Python command. Now notice that random name given to you at the top of the studio? It would be way easier to remember if you gave it a custom name. Take a moment to rename your studio so you can find and identify it easily next time. Finally, let's put our studio to sleep. To do this, click on the Environment button and activate the Sleep slider. This will help conserve resources. Your studio will not consume any tokens while asleep. Now that we've finished configuring our studio, let's verify that everything is working correctly. Start your studio again from this list by clicking on it. This may take a few seconds to initialize. As you wait, keep an eye on the status bar at the top of the screen. When it reaches 100% and then disappears, your studio will be ready to use. With our modified startup script running ComfyUI automatically, you can now access the app directly from the Port Viewer plugin without needing to use the terminal. Another way to check that ComfyUI started correctly is to click on the terminal icon in the studio's right panel. This should open a terminal window called onstart.sh, which will show you the details of the ComfyUI server, including its local URL. If anything goes wrong, this terminal window will also display any error messages or issues that occurred. For example, if you accidentally started your studio in CPU mode and forgot to select the Remember Last Used Machine checkbox, ComfyUI won't run as expected. In such cases, simply switch to GPU mode and manually start ComfyUI by running the Python command in the terminal. Now that everything is running as expected, it's time to download some models, which come in the form of checkpoint files. These checkpoint files need to be placed in a very specific folder under ComfyUI Models Checkpoints. There are several ways you can go about downloading them. Let's start with the easiest way via the ComfyUI Manager. In ComfyUI, click on the Manager button and then on Model Manager. This will open a pop-up where you'll see a ton of entries, but only some of these are checkpoint files. To filter them out, select Checkpoints for Type. You'll see the size of each model listed in the Size column, as well as a link to more information if you need it. In this list, find the entry for SDXL Turbo, for example. To install it, simply click Install. This will take just a few seconds to download and install the model. Once that's done, close the pop-up and the ComfyUI Manager. Then, in ComfyUI itself, click on Refresh and you should see the new model appear in the Load Checkpoint node, ready to go. The second way of downloading models is via the terminal. There are many models available out there, and you can find them on websites such as Hugging Face or Civit AI. Go to the model page for the one you'd like to download. Let's take the Juggernaut XL model as an example. To download the checkpoint file, you'll need to run a specific command in the terminal within Lightning Studio. Its format should look something like this. Here's how to break down the command. Model name is where you'll enter the downloaded file's name, making it easy to recognize later. For example, we could call it Juggernaut XL Hyper. Download URL comes from copying the link address of the specific model version's download button on Civit AI by right-clicking and selecting Copy Link Address. API token is your unique API key from Civit AI. You might not need this for every model, especially those that can be downloaded without logging in. For models requiring an account, sign up to Civit AI, then create an API key under Account Settings, API Keys. Generate a new API key, name it, and you're all set. Keep in mind to safeguard your API key. Once I've completed this tutorial, I'll revoke mine straight away. For Juggernaut XL, here's what the command would look like for my API key. The model begins downloading, and within a few seconds, it'll be available for use in ComfyUI. The third option for downloading models into Lightning AI is manual via file upload. If you have some models stored locally, you can upload them directly into your studio. To do this in your Lightning Studio Explorer, navigate to the ComfyUI Models folder until you see the Checkpoints folder. Right-click on it and choose Upload. Then select the specific checkpoint file you'd like to add. To start generating images with ComfyUI, launch your studio and wait for it to fully load. Next, click on the Port Viewer plugin. Select the port you created for ComfyUI and click Start to get ComfyUI up and running. You can even open the UI in a separate window or create a public URL to access it from another browser or machine. ComfyUI's interface is node-based, featuring different nodes that perform different tasks. The default workflow you see when opening ComfyUI includes several key nodes. First, there's a node that loads your installed checkpoints. Choose the one you've already downloaded and saved. Next, you'll come across two clip text encode nodes, which essentially serve as positive and negative prompts containing a default text. Notice how they feed into the next node, with the upper one connected to the positive attribute and the lower one to the negative. Below these nodes, you'll see settings for image and batch size. Since we're working with an SDXL-based checkpoint, let's change it to the 1024 by 1024 resolution. The next node controls the sampler. This is where you can tweak settings like seed, steps, CFG scale, sampling method, and more. Let's hold off on those for now. Then there's the VAE decoder, which translates the generated image into something your computer can understand. Finally, the last node handles saving or rendering the final image. To kickstart this workflow, click on Q Prompt. You'll be able to track its progress through the green frames that appear around each node. The first run might take some time, especially when loading the checkpoint, but things will speed up with subsequent images. As you see, ComfyUI has successfully generated an image. To save it, simply right-click and download it. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. Let me know in the comments what topics I should cover in my upcoming videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you'll join me soon in my next video.